Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power's Save Our Game. Donating at least $100,000 to Irish football via England goals this summer. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Good morning, buongiorno, and welcome along to the Euro 2020 show here on Off the Ball. Shane Hannon with you for the penultimate episode of the Euro 2020 show. We've been with you for the last few weeks, and boy have we enjoyed this tournament. England versus Italy still to come in the decider this Sunday at 8 p.m. in Wembley, and I really cannot wait for this final. We're live in all the usual places this morning. OTB Sports Radio, which you can get on the OTB Sports app. You can download that for free if you haven't already, in the App Store or the Play Store. We're also live on video right now as well. youtube.com/offtheball, on Facebook, and indeed on Twitter as well, at Off the Ball. And as usual, our OTB Sports Euro 2020 show is live with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England scored at the Euros. 10 goals for England so far means €100,000 in the bank so far for Irish football. They of course can add to that tally on Sunday evening in Wembley, so I cannot wait. We'll have Eamon, Dunphy and Paddy Power with us very shortly this morning on the Euro 2020 show. Time first though to say a very good morning to our own OTB Sports Enda Coll. Enda, good morning.
Buongiorno, Shane. How are you?
Buongiorno, benvenuto. I'm so excited for this. And Italy England is perhaps not the final we expected at the start of the tournament, but for a tournament that has done wonders for international football, what a game we have to look forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. I mean, Italy, England definitely wouldn't have been the final that most people would have predicted, given the outcome of the draws and the way the last 16 were falling. But I mean, we're here now. Italy are the most entertaining team at this tournament to watch. England probably the most defensively solid. So two clashes of styles, and that's sort of what you want going into a big European final, really. It's
just like the semi-finals did not disappoint either, and this England team are quite likeable, and you know ourselves, Enda, we're broadcasters and journalists. We stay neutral on this show. We don't ever show our colours and kind of show who we're supporting. But it's who you leaning towards in this one. I saw John Duggan, our own John Duggan, had a Twitter poll up last night. 2,500 people engaged in it, and he asked, who do you want to win on Sunday? And it was, I think, 88% Italy, 12% England. Is that probably a fair reflection on the mood of the nation heading into Sunday?
I think it probably is, and I have no issue with that at all. I mean, I think everybody has been supporting anybody but England at this tournament just because of the nature of it. And I mean, that's football fandom. And I know a lot of people brought in like historical references and, you know, the bitterness of Irish people towards England, but I don't think it had anything to do with that, really. It had large chunks to do with their media. It had large chunks to do with the reaction to their fans. But ultimately, it comes down to a football rivalry. I mean, I'm a Celtic fan. I don't go out there hoping Rangers are going to do well in Europe. You know, you don't want England to win a European Championship. You don't want them to win a World Cup. You don't want your rival team to win a big tournament. You want to see them crash and burn. You wouldn't see Argentinian fans getting behind Brazil if they weren't playing against each other in the Copa America this week. You wouldn't see Spanish fans supporting Portugal in the final. It just doesn't work that way, and I don't think there's any issue with football fandom, and I don't think there's any issue with not wanting to see England win this tournament. It has nothing to do with their players. It's just the way the football fandom works.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot wait for the game. I'm going to get your thoughts on the predictions before the end of today's show as well. And I just want to bring you my team at the tournament, my rolling all-stars that have been going on for the duration. So I've been chopping and changing as we've gone, and as of yesterday I had a decent enough team. So this was the team as of yesterday. Jan Sommer of Switzerland in goal, Simon Kjær for Denmark at right back. We had Chiellini and Bonucci and Shaw across the defence, so no real shape. Of course, Simon Kjær is a centre half himself. The midfield then, Federico Chiesa for Italy, Pogba France, Pedri Spain, and Raheem Sterling England out wide left. And I had Cristiano Ronaldo of Portugal and still Patrick Schick of Czech Republic up top. That's been changed to a 4-3-3 Enda, and some personnel changes as well. Jan Sommer has come out of goals and been replaced by Gianluigi Donnarumma. Excellent performance in the semi-final again against Italy, or against Spain, and I really think he's going to be a prime position for a young player of this tournament. Simon Kjær, Chiellini, Harry Maguire comes in for Bonucci in defence, and Luke Shaw keeps his place. Jorginho for Italy is in place of his Italian teammate Federico Chiesa. Pedri and Pogba keep their place just ahead of him in that midfield, and then up front Martin Damsgaard is in. He was excellent against the English. He's in for Patrick Schick. Patrick Schick lasted quite a long time. Cristiano Ronaldo keeps his place, still the golden boot holder with those 5 goals and 1 assist, and Raheem Sterling has moved up front alongside him. So that's a bit of a switch in formation, but still a decent team, I think you'll agree.
Yeah, I'll bring people behind the third wall, Shane. I actually made up that graphic, and I had to change it from the 4-4-2 graphic because you had Jorginho playing right midfield, and my brain just wasn't processing that. I wouldn't allow that to happen. It exploded when I seen Jorginho at right midfield. I think Ronaldo's lucky enough still to be there. I think you could have pushed Chiesa up into the forward line and had him. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. Kasper Schmeichel might feel a little bit hard done by after his performance against England. I think Harry Maguire is a very interesting one because, going into this tournament, having watched United, Harry Maguire has, flattered to deceive at times. I don't think he's been the rock that a lot of people would have expected him to be. But if you look at the way that he has played and his track record now this year, he's played more minutes than most players have in Europe. He played the most minutes out of any United player. He was quite solid for them for large chunks of the year. And now he has stepped that up a bit, and he stepped it up into the England squad. And I think since he's come back in, England have looked a lot more defensively solid, given, you have to bring context into the fact that, England are playing with 5 defenders and 2 defensive midfielders. So, it would be easy for a lot of centre-half to look good. But I think Harry Maguire has led the line quite well with England, and Luke Shaw as well. I mean, Luke Shaw has become the Luke Shaw everybody expected him to become when he was playing for Southampton. So I think that's a very solid team, but there's a couple of changes that might make. I like the fact that you have Jorginho in there after the coolest penalty of all time, maybe following Pirlo's penalty against England at the Euros a couple of years ago. But I think, it's a very solid team, in fairness.
Beautiful. Jorginho's run-up just epitomised everything that is cool about this Italian team. I love them. I'm in love with them, in fact. Go on, Enda.
I mean, but if you're Simone and Nets, everybody's seen Jorginho take a penalty.
Yeah.
Don't go early. Don't go early. He was gone to the shops and had a pint of milk already on his way back before Jorginho even hit that penalty. So, I mean, it was a brilliant penalty, but Simone could have did better for me.
Yeah, it's a fair point. All fair points. Decent team, I think you'll agree. YouTube is where you can slag me and tear that team apart for me if you'd like. Time to say a very good morning to Eamon Dunphy, the presenter, of course, of the Stand podcast, and Paddy Power as well. Buongiorno, Eamon. Buongiorno, Paddy.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno, lads.
Excited as I am, Eamon, for this final of the weekend. It's been roller coaster for you, this English team, because I know before the Germany game you said the thought of Boris Johnson and the parades and everything else kind of filled you with fear. Then you kind of came back a little bit in favour of the English team. Where do you sit right now heading into Sunday?
I'm full of fear that Boris will take off and levitate. It's the media, and there is a dark undercurrent in the English crowd in the stadium, booing national anthems, even the Danish national anthem, booing the German national anthem, the racism that's evident there as well, I don't like. But most of all, first of all, you should say that Gareth Southgate represents everything that's good in professional sport. He's a decent man. He's done a very good job so far. He's not the problem, and his players aren't the problem. They've really done extremely well in a conservative way. So, but it is what comes with English victories. And I'm afraid there'll be triumphalism. They'll say it was down to Brexit. They'll stomp through Europe, and they'll refer to all kinds of failures in Italian character and all of that stuff. For all of those reasons, I'm hoping Italy win. But it's a very, very close call. The pros and cons are very close. I had a drink with Liam and Didi last night, and we disagreed, but not. It's very tight.
Yeah, it will be a close game for sure. Just to pick up on the national anthem booing thing that you mentioned there, Eamon, it's been something that's kind of followed this English fan group around. Like, I'm just looking at a tweet here from Gary Neville from this morning, and he said, "When I played in the different countries and our national anthem was booed, I always took it as the opposition fans trying to unsettle us, drown our fans out, and never as some kind of attack on us as people. Same when we did it to other teams. Is it really that bad and disrespectful?" He's trying to kind of deflect the attention here. Is it really a disrespectful thing? Is it something that can maybe fire up the Italian players on Sunday when they hear that?
Well, it is. I mean, can you imagine Irish fans booing an opposing nation's national anthem?
No.
I mean, absolutely unthinkable. Why are they doing that? there is, you see, the whole Brexit thing there's an upsurge in English nationalism. They boo the Scottish national anthem, Flower of Scotland, which is beautiful. They boo that. There's just an edge to them. It doesn't represent the whole country. But Theresa May said about 3 years ago when she was, I want the Tories not to be the nasty party anymore. Actually, it was a long time ago. And but it's become the nasty party again. And Boris and Co. He's going to give them a bank holiday on Monday, which is a daft idea. When is he going to announce it? 11 o'clock on Sunday night? Yeah. All of that feeds in. I'd be interested in Paddy's view. He's an educated man. But it feeds into my attitude that I hope, despite my respect for Gareth Southgate and his players, I hope that Italy do a number on them on Sunday night. I really do. And I think everybody in Europe will be happy.
What are your thoughts, Paddy, on that and that the whole, I guess, booing of the national anthems and aura around these English fans heading into the final?
Paddy's got 500 shops in England.
I kind of could echo what Eamon's saying, and there is something uncomfortable about I guess the majority of fans are just fans, right? They're just having the crack, and it's that mob mentality, and it's we're singing songs, and like the football chants there. I mean, if you look at the lyrics written down, they're not very nice, but it's actually mostly sung for a bit of crack. Do you know what I mean? But there probably is that hardcore group that are the ones that actually are racist and actually are have properly hate the Germans or whatever the hell it might be, where the reality is most of the fans don't care. It's all part of the banter and everything like that. But I think there is a line. I don't know why it's this particular line, but say you see it like when England played rugby in Croke Park that time, and there's big drama about whether they'd be booing the national anthem, and it was almost a sense of pride, the silence during the English national anthem. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of try and rise above that. I think that's it, an Irish way is that kind of showing respect, shows you step above that. I mean, and I'm not saying that Ireland is in any way better than England from that perspective, but there is obviously a small undercurrent, which is, I mean, the fans, it's not fair as well, but the fans, because of the way the media report things in England, it's very, they nearly prefer the bad news, obviously, in the tabloids and that. They nearly prefer something to go wrong or someone to blame and point the finger, and all the better if they could do it in a kind of a covertly racist way. But you will see, even if England win and the celebrators be mad, and if you're an England fan, it'd just be amazing. There's a bit of jealousy in me because I know which is one of those once in a generation moments. But there'll be a lot of reports of bad stuff that happens afterwards. 100%. The papers will be full of, they smashed up and whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because that will happen, because there will be an element. And you see the videos of, the Chelsea fans when they're playing away in the Champions League and stuff like that, trashing a bar. It's just all the bad stuff is what we get served up. And maybe that's because there's loads of it, but I'm kind of always cynical about how it's reported, and that they do get painted with one big broad brush. And you can't imagine, we all know loads of English people, they're totally sound, so you can't imagine that they're all the same, So there's that, the uncomfortable undercurrent I totally agree with, but you kind of need it as well. You need that edge, and you need the atmosphere and that kind of stuff. But there is a line. I don't know where the line is, but there is a line that quite often has got over. We'd all be saying it's disgusting, how some of the Central European teams for fans behave and that kind of stuff with the racist chants and all that kind of thing, and that is awful behaviour. So that's obviously beyond the line, but I'm not exactly sure where the line is, because you do need that edge. And what Eamon said, I 100% agree about Southgate. He seems to be very low ego. He's the opposite of, say, a Mourinho type character, and the England team are just annoyingly likable. Versus any England team that went before, you could always, their arrogance, or there was something about them that you didn't like, and maybe that's my Irish bigotry or something. But there was always something about them that you just didn't like, or players that you just couldn't stand. But this team just seemed grand, except for maybe Sterling's dive. But generally, they just seemed like a nice bunch of lads. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's actually a lot to go in on that, because the idea of football fandom is tribalism and getting your back up and trying to intimidate the opponents as much as you can. I guess there definitely is a line, and whether that's been crossed or not is definitely to be questioned coming after this tournament. But one thing that I do want to touch on, Eamon, maybe is the psychology going into this game and the sense of occasion, because in England, this is a massive occasion. You know, Boris is talking about giving a bank holiday, like you said, and the fans are singing football's coming home, and it is all building to this culmination of the final. Whereas Italy, I just think, you know, they're treating this like any other game, and it's a final that they need to just go out and win a game. How much do you think that's going to come into the game? How much do you think that Southgate is going to have to calm down these England players going in? Because, I mean, if you let the occasion get the better of you, then that can be a disaster.
Yeah, I do think. I don't think it'll be a problem for the players on either side. They don't do that kind of hatred stuff. It's just, you know, it's when we reflect on who we're supporting and what will follow. I mean, Paddy mentioned them going in and smashing up bars when they're abroad, which they do. We go in and drink the bars dry. And that's a better way to behave. But in footballing terms, I think it's a very close game, and Southgate has been very conservative. He's got 2 holding midfield players, and he's got a back 5 essentially. Well, Kyle Walker doesn't go forward anymore, the way he does for City sometimes. So they really are very conservative, and he's banking on Sterling and Kane to do the business up front, and Saka if Saka plays. So he thinks they can score in 90 minutes, and if they keep clean sheets, and they've succeeded in doing that. The problem they have is they haven't really played a good side yet. And of course, they had the advantage of playing all their games, bar one, at Wembley, and that's huge. And this is a home game on Sunday, 60,000 plus fans in there, only 10,000 Italians. That's a plus. So they have a lot going for them, but I think the conservative approach of Southgate won't work against Italy. I think Italy would dominate the midfield with Jorginho, Verratti, Barella, and Rice and Phillips are going to be left 3 against 2. It's going to be difficult for England to protect their back 4. And that's where Maguire has played well. I agree with that. And Stones has done really well, but they haven't really been tested by top-class players. Now, Italy have top-class attackers, Chiesa in particular, who went off at the end of extra time or limped off. They say it was only cramp, but how fit will they be? This is the 7th game in a month for players who are already tired going into the tournament. England have an advantage there as well, because they have a load of very good players on the bench who are not tired. Phil Foden, Sancho, Grealish, for example. All of those 3, Grealish in particular, are game changers. And if he needs them, I think that's an advantage to Southgate. Italy will be down to the bare bones, I'm afraid. Spinazzola's out, who's been a huge player for them. He snapped his tendon against Belgium. All in all, I think it's very tight. Can Chiellini and Bonucci deal with Harry Kane? I don't think they can. I think they need to keep the ball, and I think they will keep the ball, which they couldn't do successfully against Spain. Spain really played Italy off the park. It was a remarkable performance by Spain, and their first good performance. Now, England won't be able to do that. With 2 holding midfield players, they will have less of the ball than they've had in other games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess one of the beauties of this England squad is the fact that, you know, England got to 90 minutes and they had only made 1 sub, and they still had Foden, they still had Sancho on the bench coming into extra time, and they have all these players that can make an impact in the game later on. But if Italy do take the lead, if Italy do take control of this game, have you seen enough from Gareth Southgate that he can make that, you know, really important substitution? Because he did wait until very late in the Denmark game to make the sub because he thought it was going to extra time. But if the game is in the melting pot, do you think he has the ability to make that game-changing sub?
I think he'll need to be more attack-minded than England have been. And I do think with 2 holding midfield players, you really don't have the opportunity to control a game with the ball. midfield is critical, and that's where games are won and lost. And England in that department are light. They don't have a playmaker. They don't have someone like Jorginho, for example, who'll get on the ball and he will control the tempo of the game, increase it when necessary, slow it down when necessary. England don't have that kind of midfield player. What they're likely to do and what they need to do is get Harry Kane in the game. He's got off to a slow start in the tournament, but he was brilliant the other night. His pass for Saka that led to the on goal was brilliant. Now, if he comes deep, Chiellini and Bonucci are going to have a decision to make. They can't go deep with him. That means England will be able to play through to Harry Kane. Harry can get turned, and then Sterling. That's the combination that must win for England, Sterling and Kane. And after the season Raheem Sterling had at Manchester City, which ended with Guardiola suggesting they don't want to have him anymore, he can go and they'll sell him. After that season, it took an awful lot of fortitude for Gareth Southgate to pick him. And he scored an awful lot of goals for Southgate in an England shirt, over 20. So he's a key player as well. And him and Kane are the make the difference guys. Maybe Saka, but I don't think Saka at his age and with his inexperience will be able to have an effect against Italy. I think Italy will bottle him up.
Just to get a couple of your views on a couple of the incidents from those semi-finals, I guess starting with that penalty, and Paddy, you mentioned that the Raheem Sterling incident and the dive, as you said, like, from my view, I thought at the very least VAR would bring the referee's attention to it, make him go over to the monitor, have a look, and then decide for himself again. But Paddy, it sounds like in your view you think it was a dive by Raheem Sterling for the penalty.
Yeah, funny, even when I saw the replays, the first time I saw them, I thought actually there was a little bit of contact, and you know, when there's contact in the box like that, it's a penalty. They're given, aren't they, when the player goes down. But when the more you obviously saw the replay about 25,000 times on the telly, and then you kind of, the more you look at it, the more you realise that he was actually mid dive nearly. Like he was planning on diving, and it was nearly a bonus for him that your man might have brushed off him. So I didn't like that, but I don't know. I mean, these things happen, but I guess, like Didi was saying in the day, the reason VAR was brought in was to kind of correct those kind of injustices, or I don't know if injustice is the right word, but to stop those big calls being gotten wrong. And but again, England were definitely the better team. Like, I mean, England were much better. Denmark were hanging on by their fingernails at that stage. So the right result was got maybe in the wrong way. But yeah, I think. But I wonder, does that tarnish? Like, I was thinking, Sterling now is say favourite to be player of the tournament. But does that tarnish his player of the tournamentness? Like, do you know what I mean? There's a bit of, I don't know. It's not exactly the role model for kids. I sound like my dad now, but you know what I mean? It's not like the role model for kids that you're after. Like, you prefer them to do it clean and pure. And again, because it was checked by VAR and VAR said it was a penalty, like, maybe we shouldn't even be talking about it. Maybe it was a penalty. Maybe we don't know the rules properly. Maybe it is a penalty.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that even Raheem Sterling's interview afterwards, he was asked about it and he said, definite penalty. No question about it. Eamon, what camp are you in?
I know it wasn't a penalty. There's no question. Now, I have to say, I did a podcast with John Giles yesterday. John thought it was.
Right.
But I'd looked at it. I like Paddy. John said there was contact, but I think Paddy's right. He was on his way down, and there was no contact material to the decision. It was a mistake, and it's inexplicable that VAR didn't pick it up. And you'd have to question why the home team got that penalty, because it really was not a penalty. It was a game changer. Now, the other factor in that equation, of course, is that Denmark had to play the Czech Republic in a really tough game in Baku, which is in Afghanistan. No, sorry, it's in Azerbaijan. What part of Europe is Azerbaijan in? And why did any team have to go there? Switzerland went there 3 times, I think, and Wales went there twice. So the Danes have and they were so emotional, and they had such a wonderful tournament. It's resonated with the nation. They are national heroes, and they were dead. They were out on their feet, and still England could only win that way in extra time. So Italy are a different proposition.
And the other thing on just because when you're watching that game, I mean, like the tension was amazing to watch, wasn't it? Just as a viewer, like it really was a brilliantly tense, and exactly that, like the Dane heroically hanging. It was like, remember that time Richard Dunn played on his own, and
yes, Russia.
That kind of stuff. Like everything could have been a goal, but they just kept hanging on, right? But the like England got there in the end. I think you're right about the fans and everything, but one of the things about it is that. Like they're obviously out on their feet. I've kind of lost my train of thought now. I had an amazing point to make and I've totally forgotten. I'll remember in a minute. Sorry.
Well, anything that reminds us of Richard Dunn and Russia is good enough for me. That's brought back some smiles and good memories, that performance. I wanted to get your thoughts, Eamon, too, on the Giorgio Chiellini antics, I guess you'll call them, before the penalty shootout in the semi-final against Spain. Like hugging Jordi Alba, kind of laughing and joking. Jordi Alba didn't want a bit of it by the look of it. It was Italian shithousery at its absolute finest. Like exactly what we'd expect from Chiellini at this point. But what did you make of that? Like, was it just being friendly before a shootout? Was he trying to put him off? What was your take?
I think he would be, they do everything they can. Chiellini is a bastard. He looks like a mafia don. And that smile, and if you watch him singing the national anthem, it's amazing. It's a show in itself. But the passion is there, but he's wily and he knows everything. He was at fault, for the Spanish goal that Morata scored before he missed the penalty. But he was at fault. It was a 1-2 and he just got caught. He is very vulnerable. He can't run anymore, but he can think. And a lot of defending is thinking, reading situations, preventing danger before it really happens. And Chiellini is a real warrior, and he'll have, Italy have won 5 major championships since England won the World Cup in 1966. I think it's 5. These guys are used to winning. He's won 9 Serie A titles with Juventus. They are winners. They know how to win. Bonucci's played alongside him forever. They're separated now, but they played alongside each other for a very, very long time. These are great defenders. And it's their wiliness, their experience, their reading of the game against Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling's power, athleticism, and in Kane's case, deadly confidence in the box, which he's regained now during this tournament. So that really is, that and midfield is where the game will be decided. Can Chiellini and Bonucci deal with Harry Kane? Big question mark. Can they deal with Raheem Sterling's pace? Massive question mark. And then, of course, there's the midfield argument. I think Italy will win the midfield argument, but I'd be very frightened of Harry Kane if I was an Italian and Raheem Sterling with the pace that Sterling has. These guys can't. Chiellini can barely run.
Just on the point, just back to the midfield argument. This is what I'd forgotten a minute ago. So what struck me, again, not being in any way technically football expert like Eamon, but the way England were playing towards the end of the Denmark match with such confidence, just passing the ball. It's like watching, I don't know, a European team play the Champions League, right? But then as soon as it went against them at the very end, they were legless, or not legless, but their heads were gone, and they were scared, and everything was frantic. And so just seeing the game out, if it's tight, you just wonder when it gets there at the final, like, do they have it? Do you know what I mean? Like Pickford was all over the shop, wasn't he? Like, I mean, so they were just really nervy towards the end, and I just, that would worry me if I was an England fan. That I suppose until you do it, you don't know. But like, there's a huge weight of history there, and they all know it, they all feel it, especially coming towards the end of the game. I'd say if it's tight,
Well, that's what I was actually going to ask. Sorry, go on, Eamon.
Well, the pressure, people talk about the advantage of playing at Wembley, and I've just talked about it. But also, there is pressure when you play, when the nation expects, there is, and when the English nation expects in particular, there is real pressure. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Again, if you look at 2 lads in midfield, Phillips plays for Leeds. He's only got about 10 caps. Declan Rice, very young man, going to be and well on the verge of being a great player, but they're very young. They haven't been here before in this situation. And Pickford, as Paddy rightly pointed out, goalkeepers are supposed to give you confidence, and they're supposed to be composed and have a presence. This guy looks like he's about to have a nervous breakdown, and maybe Sunday's the night.
You'd think twice about passing back to him, wouldn't you?
You would, and the other thing is Italy have a great goalkeeper. If it goes to penalties, Italy's goalkeeper is superb. He's 22, he's got 150 caps. He's a giant, and that might be a material fact, I think, because there is every chance this game could go to penalties.
If you look at this team, and you sort of alluded to it there, Eamon, if you look at the England team, for example, there's only a couple of players that have actually played at the biggest stage. You know, Mason Mount, Harry Kane, Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire are probably the only 4 players that started against Denmark that have played in a European final.
Yep.
If you compare that to Italy, who have the likes of Chiellini, who is used to winning every single year and used to playing at the biggest stage, when it comes to penalties, then when it comes to the occasion of it, like Italy surely have the advantage there psychologically.
Well, Italy haven't got a great record in penalty shootouts. The 94 World Cup, they lost to Brazil, I think it was.
Baggio.
Pardon?
Baggio's miss.
Yeah, over the bar. I mean, Roberto Baggio. You know, they're not renowned for their nerve in penalty shootouts, and I would definitely say in a penalty shootout, Italy have the goalkeeper going for them, and that's big because goalkeepers can decide those things. But Italian nerves aren't great. They missed a penalty. They missed the first penalty, didn't they, in the Spain penalty shootout against Spain? And if the record books will show, Italians don't like penalty shootouts.
Paddy, just to get your thoughts on the fact that, you know, Eamon mentioned Harry Kane, and if he has a big game again on Sunday, you know, bangs in another goal or two, I'm sure you've been checking the bank account. I know that's 100 grand now for Irish football as a result of these 10 England goals with your Save Our Game campaign. Have you been nervously watching these England games, watching the goals roll in?
Not at all, because I mean, in fact, I would say hats off to the football boffins or whatever who came up with the 10 goal, like the 100 grand, the expected 10 goals, because that's what it is. You know, they're pretty much bang on. Harry Kane needs 2 goals, I think, to overtake Lineker, isn't that right? And to get Golden Boot.
Yeah,
is that right? So I mean, 2 goals. It's a big ask, isn't it, to be getting 2 goals in the final? But he is the most likely scorer. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, he's a handful, and with the lads getting in behind the slower defenders, I mean, the pullback is just perfect, isn't it? So, I mean, that's how you can see it happening. And he just seems like an unlikely Golden Boot winner, like he was last time. And again, he seems like an unlikely one. But Jesus, it's there to be won, isn't it? He's got it half on his foot. He hasn't laced it up yet, but it's yeah. I mean, I don't know. And if he does do that, maybe he's player of the tournament. I don't know.
He's come from nowhere as well after such a relatively poor start, I guess, to the tournament for himself. Eamon, just your thoughts on the fact that Jack Grealish came off the bench, and then Southgate, of course, took him off again when he realised he wasn't what he wanted in closing the game out. Like, that was something that Roy Keane spoke about afterwards. He said Gareth Southgate can, you know, he's a lovely guy, but he can be nasty as well. He has the cojones to make these big decisions, and that proved it.
Well, he certainly made the big decision before the tournament started by sticking with Raheem Sterling. I mean, that was an amazing decision. He'd have been killed if it didn't come off, and it did in a big way. Sterling has scored goals, and he made the first goal in Rome last Saturday night for Harry Kane. He's had an amazing tournament, and he's injected tempo and intensity into England's attack. Almost single-handedly. So he's had a great tournament. And I think he's to be commended, Southgate, for sticking with Sterling. It's a decision not many people would have made. And where I think he's made a mistake is with 2 holding midfield players against a team of Italy's quality. Whoever has the ball the most, and if it's Italy that have the ball for the longest period of time, they do have forwards who can score. Insigne scored a great goal against Belgium. He came inside, he curled it past Courtois. It was a superb goal. He's not prolific. And Immobile is having a really bad tournament, and he's not prolific. But Chiesa stepped in with a brilliant goal the other night, and he is a really remarkable player. His father scored for Italy in the 1996 tournament, so there's pedigree there. And I just hope, I really want Italy to win, but and I haven't put the money down yet, and I'm not sure if I even need money to get a buzz off this game. It's a really great final, and there are good stories all over the place. It'll be, if England win, the pain. I was at the 1966 final.
Were you?
Yeah, and I was. It's a terrible thing to have to admit to now. I was at the semi-final and the final. Yeah, it was amazing.
Were you wearing the West Germany shirt at that stage, or what were you doing?
No, I wasn't actually. I was living in England, and I loved the English. It's only when I came home. But I was at the final, and there is a similarity. Alf Ramsey was criticised for the same reason as Gareth Southgate, being far too conservative. He left Jimmy Greaves out of the team, and he played Roger Hunt and Geoff Hurst up front. Geoff Hurst got a hat-trick. But they weren't as expansive as people like me wanted them to be. But they won the World Cup. And the Southgate story is very, very similar in that he has been conservative, he's been cautious, and he's let some of the other teams they played beat themselves. But don't forget, this is a team that couldn't beat Scotland 2.5 weeks ago at Wembley, 0-0, and Scotland could have won it. Now, Italy are a step up from Scotland in a big way. So that's a thought.
And there's a logic. I was just thinking in my head there, it's just because we have the wall planner at home for the kids, they're filling in the scores the whole way along. And like the pivotal moment of Poland equalising against Spain, which means Sweden topped the group, which means suddenly you just look at the side of the draw and you have the 16 teams written down on the side that's Italy in versus the side that England are in, and you're kind of going, Jesus, this side is definitely going to be winning this tournament. Do you know what I mean? No matter who it happened to be Italy. So the quality that they've come through versus the quality that England had to face. So now they've done it, they've got there. But logically, you'd say Italy have had are way better to have got here than England have had to be to get there.
They haven't lost for 33 matches. It's an incredible record. Incredible. And he's blooded players, young players, some of them from smaller clubs in Italy. He's kind of resurrected Chiellini and Bonucci. And those guys will be, when the younger Italian players look at each other before the game in the dressing room, they see, Chiellini, that villain's face, his central casting villain. But watch them sing the national anthem with such verve and passion. It's extraordinary. And I must say, I like the Italian nation. I like Italy. I like their temperament. I like their food. I like everything about them. And I please God they're going to win.
If we're comparing food, I mean, it's bangers and mash against, spaghetti.
I've actually got spaghetti. I've got some spaghetti and here as well.
I'm not a football pundit, and I'm talking rubbish.
In terms of the midfield battle that you've mentioned, Eamon, Jorginho has been key to this Italy midfield.
Yes.
And I know that over the last couple of years, a lot of people not really that fond of him in England because they're not really sure what he does.
Right. Yeah.
But now he's a Champions League winner. He's in a European final. I mean, he definitely has a role. I mean, is this a template now for England, for the teams in England, for Chelsea, that this is what Jorginho can do if you play him in the right place?
Yes. Yes, pass the ball forward much more than he used to playing for Chelsea. Also putting pressure on the ball, getting tackles in. Mancini has inspired him in a certain way and coached him in a certain way. And that is, a huge... I mean, the 33-game unbeaten run is down to Mancini, his ability as a coach, and he will be looking at the same picture we're looking at, and he'll have to make decisions about, for example, Chiellini and Bonucci, how they deal with Harry Kane. What do they do if Kane drops deep? Now, in the tournament, he didn't drop deep in a number of the games. But if he drops deep the way he does for Spurs, he can be very, very effective, Harry Kane. He made that goal the other night with a brilliant through ball for Saka, who crossed it back into the net. Harry Kane is the key man, in my opinion, for England. Can they get him on the ball? And if they can, he will pose a massive threat, because he's very confident now, and confident strikers like Kane are deadly. He doesn't need two chances. If he gets one chance, he'll score. And if I really had to put my house on it, I put my house on him scoring, England winning, and him being player of the tournament. That's a dispassionate view of this game. But the passion side of me, like the rest of the world, wants Italy to do it. Forza Italia.
Forza Italia. Eamon, you mentioned Gareth Southgate there and what he's brought to this English camp, and one of the things that really noticed me or struck me was Rio Ferdinand talking on television the other day, saying, when he was in squads like this at major tournaments, if players weren't getting in the team, they'd be sulking around, they'd be on the phone to their agents, they'd be causing a little bit of havoc. Normally at this stage of tournaments, we see England players getting in the press maybe for wrong reasons and stuff off the pitch. None of that has happened. Maybe it's the fact that they're going back to George's Park and they're in familiar surroundings in England. But for one thing, Gareth Southgate has kept this English team under very, very tight wraps.
Yes, and it's very noticeable when they win games, or when there's moments in games where they score. All those players on the bench, Foden, Sancho, all of those young guys, they all come off the bench, they hug each other. At the end of games, you see the whole English bench going and hugging the guys who played. So he has generated a fantastic spirit in the camp. And that's massively important in tournament football, because you're together for 6 or 7 weeks. And they've been in camp now 6-7 weeks. And if the spirit is right, it's a huge achievement for the coach, and it's a huge asset to the guys who have to go out and do the business. So but there's no doubt either about the Italian togetherness and spirit. It's strong, very strong.
We had Steve McLaren on Off the Ball during the week, chatting with Joe, and he made a point that he felt that this English team, if they win a trophy, which they could well do on Sunday, they'll go on to dominate. Like the Spain team did in 2008 at the Euros, World Cup of 2010, Euros again in 2012. Do you go along with that, Eamon? Do you think that's maybe a bit of hyperbole, or do you think he's onto something there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the Spanish team of 2008, 2010, 2012 had great players, a lot of them, and Xavi, Iniesta, David Silva, Busquets, Jordi Alba, who's still playing, but he's cracking on now. No, that was a great team. This is not an England team that's going to dominate world football. The reason they keep getting, they get their high seeds, they get easy qualifying groups, then they're in. But it is a very good English team so far, and the results, the semi-final of the World Cup, final of the Euros, it's what Gareth Southgate has achieved is extremely commendable. And Harry Kane has been a big, big part of it. But there are things, the goalkeeper, 2 defensive holding players in midfield, Raheem Sterling having had a poor season for Manchester City, and maybe Pep Guardiola's willing to sell him now, or anxious to sell him even. For all of those reasons, Southgate would have been on the front of the sun with a turnip where his head, like Graham Taylor, if it had gone wrong. But it hasn't, and I'm glad it hasn't. But it could still happen. They might turn on him if Italy do a job on him.
Lads, it's prediction time. We've come to that point of the tournament, and like John Giles was listening to John talking to Nathan last night in the show, and he was asked if he had the what the atmosphere was like in England. He said they're going stone mad, and Nathan, I think, asked him if he had the English flag up outside the house yet, and he said nope, the green, white and orange outside the house, nobody comes near me, which was a fair point. Paddy, how's this game going to go? Score prediction, how do you see it panning out on Sunday night?
So I think that what I want and what I think are two different things, but I think it's going to be very cagey. I think both of these teams have kind of retreated into themselves and played real European style football the later the tournament's gone on. So I'm not sure it's going to be a 3-3. I'd love if it was, but I think it's going to be tight, and I think cagey, and it'll come down to nerves, and I think it's going all the way. I think it might go all the way to penalties. Just much as it makes no sense, this tournament has been quite unpredictable. A lot of the results along the way have been unpredictable. It's been that type of tournament. And I think that, you just might end up with Jordan Pickford as a poster boy, which is very unlikely. But that could just happen. I mean, we could get a penalty shootout, and coming to penalties, I actually think England are going to win it. I think I think Italy are a slightly better team. If you're playing this in Dublin or anywhere else, I think Italy would be favourites. But because I think the crowd is massive, and I think they've released more tickets, haven't they, since Johnson's got rid of all the coronavirus things and everything like that. And all those newly released tickets will have gone to England fans. There's even going to be a higher proportion of home fans in the stadium. So I think that, I think England will be dragged across the line, but it'll be on penalties. I think it's going to go all the way. Maybe 1-1 normal time, a very cagey extra time, and a penalty shootout with Pickford the hero.
Eamon, is Boris going to be announcing a bank holiday late on Sunday night?
I agree with Paddy. I think 1-1 is a distinct possibility. I think Italy will score, and I think England will score. I think it'll be possibly 2-1 Italy. I think it should be a great game, and I wouldn't bet against a penalty shootout. It's very tight.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this, lads. It's going to be a cracker. 8 p.m. Wembley Stadium, London, Sunday evening. Italy against England. Listen, Eamon, Paddy, great stuff as always this morning. Enjoy the final on Sunday, and thanks a million for everything over the last few weeks.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
See you guys. Cheers, lads.
Great stuff. Eamon Dunphy there, of course, presenter of the Stand podcast as well, and legendary Irish broadcaster, and Paddy Power himself. I'll get your views, Enda, in just a second on the final and how you think it's going to pan out. I honestly cannot wait for this. I'll bring you some of your comments as well. You've been writing into us. Hanoi Trippier, come on England. Larry Jerry says go Italy. We've got people on both sides of the aisle in our comments at the moment. Steve Carloway says, have we to credit both managers with how they have created a club environment within both camps? I haven't seen international teams as united as these two. That's a fair point. Both have done extremely well, Mancini and Southgate. Madge Apple says Pickford is due a brain fart. His calm demeanour is beginning to crack. Cannot wait to see it. You always do feel that there's going to be a mistake somewhere in Jordan Pickford, but he's only got one more game to go, 90 minutes plus potential extra time as well. Vision says on YouTube, as an Irishman in Italy, the build up to this game is huge. You lot are just oblivious to it because you don't consume Italian media as vociferously or obsessively as English media. Fair point. I mean, we see the back of the English tabloids every single morning, which is sometimes hard to stomach. We'll see what they're like on Monday morning, although maybe if it's a bank holiday, even the newspaper writers will take the day off and we'll have no newspapers on Monday. England will have gone that stone mad. Paul Caulfield, Pickford's definitely due a mistake or two in the final. He went walkabout against Ukraine and he caused the Danish free kick with some daft sloppy play at the back. Hanoi Trippier says Italy dive constantly. Grosso in the 06 put Australia out in the World Cup. That's maybe a potential thing. We could see a few dives on Sunday, to be fair. Sonny Sharrock still bleating on about the penalty. It absolutely was not a game changer. England were dominating the game, but I think it was.
Well, it won the game. It won the game.
It was an extra time.
By that nature, it was a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely a moment. We've got a comment in here from Sarah in Galway. And hi Shane, I'm totally on the fence for Sunday. Don't know who to support at all. Any advice or guidance on who to get behind? Thanks in advance. That's an interesting comment in from Sarah. Well, I have to tell you, Sarah, obviously as presenter of the OTB Sports Euro 2020 show, I have to stay impartial, but I will say this. There are some great things the Italians have given the world over the years, Sarah. We've got fashion. Fashion is one thing. Look at those boys. Alberto Vanni on the right hand side there. Versace, Valentino, Giorgio Armani, Prada, Gucci. I could go on. The most dapper, beautiful human beings that grace planet Earth, grace the eternal city of Rome and the Italian countryside. Why are they beautiful? Because they are dressed nicely. That is Italia. We've got hand gestures as well. Chiellini, Totti, Pierre. Look at Francesco Totti there. He's just a beautiful, beautiful man. Why do we love these gestures so much? Not because of the mafia, but because of the Italian characters we've seen doing it. Chiellini and Bonucci, if you come home and find Toddy with your wife, you'd read him a bedtime story. That's a fact. Francesco Toddy is the man. Andrea Pirlo, the coolest man on the planet. I think you'll agree, Enda, as well. Chipped that penalty against Joe Hart and didn't even dignify him with so much as a passing glance. That is Italia. Trapattoni's translator as well, Giovanni Trapattoni, will remember her, Manuela Spinelli. I mean, she's famous in Irish culture at the moment as well. Like, we all remember Giovanni Trapattoni and what he brought to the Irish setup. I mean, he was something else. Manuela Spinelli was at the forefront of all of that as well. She was always close to Giovanni Trapattoni. Studied in Ireland as well. UCD, then Trinity, and then joined the FAI in 2008. So that is Italia. So Sarah, if you're looking for someone to support, espresso as well. Here's another reason, in case you needed one. Built and patented in Italy. So anytime you feel tired in the mornings, you take a little bit of espresso, cappuccino, macchiato. They sound Italian, those words, because they are Italian words, Sarah. That is Italia. We've got gelato as well. Eamon Dunphy mentioned food. Just as with pizza, the Neapolitans have to be credited with creating those first true ice creams, and they've put their stamp on it. That is Italia. Radio, Enda, as well. Guglielmo Marconi invented the radio. He got the Nobel Prize for Physics for it as well. What is the name of the building I'm sitting in here right now? It's Marconi House. It's named after an Italian. Guglielmo Marconi. That is Italia. And then finally, the Roma 2 takeaway. We've all been there. Late night after Camden Street, Wexford Street, wherever you've spent the night on the sauce. The dinginess draws us in for some reason. Most towns and villages have that little Italian chipper. It was good enough for Anthony Bourdain too, the late great chef. He went there for an episode of one of his shows, loved it. The look the chipper owner gives you when they ask if you want salt and vinegar, that's amore. That is Italia. So Sarah, to answer your question on who you should support, I mean, I personally clearly am unbiased. I'm a presenter, I'm staying neutral, so support whoever you want, but that's just a few of the reasons that I think Italy is a great country. And where are you falling on this side of the aisle?
Well, there's a couple of things there, Shane. This is the first time I've heard that, the Marconi House is actually named after the inventor of the radio, so I have to hold out my hands up to that. Roma 2, one of the greatest takeaways of all time. Famously got 2 taco chips on one night in Roma 2. Not proud of that. But the Italian culture, I mean, if you think about it, and I mentioned there, we're comparing bangers and mash to, the lasagna and pizza and all the great Italian cuisines that you have. And I mean, it's not even close if you're comparing the cultures. Italian culture is much deeper and much more enjoyable than English culture. So if you're basing it off that, then I would say the Italians have it every single day of the week. Also, The Sopranos would not be a thing if, Italian Americans didn't exist. So all the greatest things come from Italy, and I do think on the pitch they will be better than England when it comes to this at the end of the day as well. It's a very interesting one though, Shane, and one thing that I think we should probably touch on is the idea that this Italian side are just so much more confident going into this game.
Don't get distracted, by the way, by the Italian national anthem playing. Just keep going, and just keep going.
I'm getting riled up here. I'm getting passionate. I just don't think, look at what Jordan Pickford. Look what happened when Denmark started to put pressure on. He started flapping his lines, giving out to his defenders. That's not going to work against Italy. They're going to take those chances. So I think Italy are going to win this.
I can't wait for this. We've got predictions as well. Myself, Ger and Nathan have been doing our predictions. It's got very, very tight end, I have to say. And they've been closing in. I've got a 24 points, Ger on 23 points, Nathan on 20. Nathan's out of the running, it has to be said. The rules were changed heading into the semi-finals and final. There was a point given for predicting the winning team, but also a bonus point for the winning score, and Ger closed in with that. So I've gone for Italy 1-0. Ger has gone for England to win on Sunday night on penalties, and Nathan is opting for the Italians 3-2 after extra time. Enda, call it.
I think I'm going to go with an Italy win. I don't think it's going to be a comprehensive one. I think it's going to be tight, but I think Italy are just going to edge it. I do think they will, and that's taking. If England win this, everybody will hold their hands up and say, they did deserve it and they deserve to get to the final and to win the tournament. But I think Italy are the team. If you look at England's run in to the final, and you can only beat who's in front of you. The group stages. The one team they struggled against was Scotland, then Germany, they're not getting the German side of old, then Ukraine, who were out in their legs, Denmark, who out in their legs as well. They had no sub. They played 10 men for the final 10 minutes of the game. Italy are coming into this in great form with great players, with a great manager, and I think England are going to struggle to beat them.
I cannot wait for this final. And it's been excellent having you on Fridays across the tournament, and then we've had Eamon Dunphy with us every Friday as well. Thanks a million for everything, and listen, enjoy the football. I know you will, as Team 33's football hipster presenter. That's something you're going to enjoy on Saturday night, on Sunday night. So enjoy it, and listen, we'll check in again.
Jane, chat to you later.
Great stuff. And a call there, as I said, Team 33. That is the Euro 2020 show here on Off the Ball in the books for the penultimate episode. We, of course, will be back on Monday morning as well. So we're live in association with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating 10 any of the show this morning. The full podcast will be up very shortly in the usual places, wherever you get your podcasts. On the OTB Sports app as well, you can download that for free in the App Store or the Play Store. If you haven't already, you'll also be able to watch the full episode back. youtube.com/Off the Ball. Also plenty of clips and highlights from the show in the usual places on the Off the Ball's Instagram and Twitter pages at Off the Ball. Myself on Twitter at ShenHannon01. I'll be back, as I said, Monday morning from 11 a.m. in the company of Damien Delaney to look back on Sunday night's final. Will there be a bank holiday in England that day? It remains to be seen. Boris Johnson will, of course, call it if England win on Sunday night. So same time, same place, Monday morning, 11 a.m. for the final episode of the Euro 2020 show. Enjoy Sunday's match. It's going to be a cracker. Cannot wait. Have a good one.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power's Save Our Game. England's goals total 100,000 so far for Irish football. Gamble responsibly. Gambling Care.